Did you know Queen once made a full sci-fi movie soundtrack that a lot of casual fans still do not realize is basically a Queen album? And no, I do not mean Highlander, I mean Flash Gordon. In 1980, Queen were not looking for a weird side quest. They had just entered their imperial phase. The game gave them Crazy Little Thing Called Love, and Another One Bites the Dust. They were massive, so naturally, the next move was space emperors, laser battles, and Brian Blessed shouting like the roof owed him money. Here is the part people miss. Flash Gordon is officially counted as Queen's 9th studio album. It was not just Queen contributed a song. The band built almost the whole soundtrack around the movie. Most people know the famous bit, Flash, but the album around it is much stranger. A lot of it is instrumental. Instead of Freddie singing the whole time, you get guitars, synths, dramatic stabs, battle music, and actual dialogue from the film dropped into the tracks like audio comic book panels. That was unusual for a rock band at the time. Queen were treating a campy space opera like a playground for rock, orchestral drama, and early electronic textures. And this matters because Queen had built part of their identity on not using synthesizers in the 1970s. They even made a point of saying there were no synths on earlier albums. Then around The Game and Flash Gordon, suddenly the future arrives, wearing a cape and extremely suspicious eyebrows. Brian May became especially important here. He wrote Flash's theme and the hero, and his guitar basically acts like one of the characters. It does not just decorate the movie, it announces danger, triumph, panic, and the feeling that someone has pressed every red button in the spaceship at once. Now here is where casual fans get thrown off. The soundtrack has only a couple of proper vocal songs. If you came looking for another Somebody to Love, this album looks at you and says, "Best I can do is intergalactic courtroom chaos." But that is what makes it interesting. Flash Gordon shows Queen as builders of worlds, not just writers of singles. Think about it, Queen were always theatrical. Bohemian Rhapsody already sounded like a tiny opera being attacked by a rock band. We Are the Champions already felt like end credits to a sports movie that had not been filmed yet. So when they got an actual fantasy universe, they did not have to fake the scale. And the movie itself was not trying to be sleek and realistic. It was bright, campy, exaggerated, and proudly ridiculous. That fit Queen perfectly. They could make something sound heroic and slightly absurd at the same time, which is basically the entire emotional weather system of Flash Gordon. The soundtrack also captures Queen at a transition point. On one side, you still have the huge guitars and stacked drama of classic Queen. On the other, you hear them moving toward the synth-heavy, funkier, more experimental 1980s. So the album becomes this strange bridge, part rock opera, part film score, part comic book, part laboratory accident with excellent harmonies. One of the funniest details, the most famous line people remember from the soundtrack, is not even sung by the band. It is the movie dialogue, "Gordon's alive." That is how committed they were to making the film part of the music. The record does not just sit next to the movie, it chews the scenery with it. And here is the real reason this story is underrated. Flash Gordon proves Queen did not only make anthems, they understood branding before everyone called it branding. They knew how to make a sound instantly recognizable. One shouted word, one guitar blast, one dramatic chord, and you know exactly where you are. This is also why Queen worked so well in stadiums. Their music was never small. Even their weird ideas had architecture. They built songs like stages, and Freddie Mercury walked onto them like he had personally invented entrances. So yes, Flash Gordon is goofy. It is also ambitious. It is Queen taking a strange assignment and turning it into a neon sci-fi opera where rock music gets to wear a cape. And if you only know Queen from the biggest hits, this is the fun hidden chapter, the moment they became the house band for the most dramatic planet in the universe. Honestly, more bands should be this weird on purpose.